Okay, year 11. Attention this way, please. Thank you. If you do not have a copy of the exam paper, the A3 sheet of paper, could you put your hand up now, please? If you have not got a copy of the separate resource material that looks like this, put your hand up now, please. Right up in the air so we can see you, please. Keep your hands up. If you have not got a highlighter, put your hand up now, please. Okay, we need to make a quick start, so can I have your attention, please? I realize that the setup is slightly different from before. Some people are facing, others can be a distraction. I appreciate that, so please make sure that your attention is this way. In order to get the most out of this session, we need your undivided attention and silence, please. Okay, first of all, I just want to get familiar with the paper, so follow me. As you're already aware, the questions on the Unit 2 paper, for the most part, are very similar to those on the Unit 1 paper. So if you turn with me to the inside of your paper, first of all, you'll notice that the questions are on the first side, not on the second. And also you'll notice that there are two resource materials. One will be published on the inside of the paper, here, and the second will be a separate resource then that should be tucked inside of the paper. The exam obviously will make use of both. But let's begin then with the questions. We would begin in exactly the same way as we would with the Unit 1 paper, by familiarizing ourselves with question 1. And you'll notice here that question 1 reads, what do Shami and Emma think and feel about working as intelligence officers? First of all, you'll notice that also at the top there, it tells us which of the two texts we need to refer to. So it's telling us here that we need to refer or read What Are Spies Really Like by Peter Taylor in the separate resource material. It is essential that you familiarize yourselves with the appropriate resources. You know which one they're referring to. It has happened, it happens most years, where someone will get the two resources mixed up, and that does unfortunately mean that you will have 0 marks for whichever question you answer on the incorrect resource material. You will have 0 marks for it. So it is important that you familiarize yourself with those texts, first of all, and which one is being referred to. So this one is the separate resource material, so it looks like this. What do Shami and Emma think and feel about working as intelligence officers? So you notice here that it's asking you what these people think and feel. So it's a case, again, of tracking through the text thoroughly and conscientiously, looking at what the thoughts and feelings are and how you know, identifying inference, so what is suggested, what is implied. But the difference with this question, particularly this individual question on this particular paper, is that it's asking you what the thoughts and feelings are of 2 particular people and not one. In which case, I think that the best way to set out an answer for this would be to, first of all, look at the thoughts and feelings of one character, answer that question, and then go on to look at the thoughts and feelings of the second character, and then write in a paragraph below the former on your answer booklet about that character. That's the only consideration I would make here. You shouldn't expect anything else from the examination. They generally follow a pattern. So that's question one. We've covered thoughts and feelings. We know how to answer that question, so we'll move on and look at question two, which is a how question. So, it now says, now read the advertisement from MI6 on the opposite page. So this will be the one printed on the actual paper. How does this advertisement from MI6 try to recruit intelligence officers? So again, we're looking at how. We're looking at the writer's choices. We're going to be focusing particularly on things like language. That's going to be a vital component of this answer. You need to track through the text carefully, remembering to secure a range of quotations from throughout the extract. But also, it would be important to think back in this instance to your controlled assessment, where you were looking at, for instance, how does the writer persuade the reader to donate to this charity. All of us have sat a controlled assessment to that effect. So remember some of the devices, some of the choices that the writer might use there, for instance, asking rhetorical questions. But what we're not expecting is for you to look at a range of persuasive techniques. Instead, focus rather on language. It's very much the same as the one in Unit 1. So there are no different expectations here, okay? So those are for the first two questions. We're going to move on to question 3, which is very, very different from any of the questions you have on Unit 1. And Mr. Parkinson is going to take you through question 3. That's not, you don't need that. Is that okay? Yeah, that's for me to as well. Yeah. Cheers, man.
Okay then, guys, you know that this question is one where you have to compare. It says, to answer this question, please look at both texts. Now, it might say compare, or it might say compare and contrast. Whatever it says, you know you need to be looking for similarities and differences. So make sure you highlight that part. I might try and talk without that. And then you need to think about what it's asking you to compare. So as you go through the text, you will underline, compare what these two texts say about what sort of person becomes an intelligence officer. That's what they want you to look for. So that's your focus in this question. The other really, really important thing is that you need to look at what's written in italics there. You must make it clear from which text you get your information. Now here you can see that one of the texts is being called an advertisement. It's called it in question 2. So call that text the advertisement. The other text in separate resource material, I would say, is an article. So call that text an article. If you can't work out what type of text they are to refer to them, have a look at who wrote them. See if you can see an author. We know in the separate resource materials someone called Peter Taylor has written that text. So call that person in Taylor's text. Don't call him Peter because you don't know him, he's not your mate. Call them by their last name. It's really important that you understand that you have to say where you're getting your information from. And if you look at the marked examples, the examiners tick and underline if you said, from the advertisement I get, from the article I get. The mark scheme wants you to use a range of different examples, not just one or two. It wants you to be really clear on where you're getting that information from. And it also, and most importantly, relies on you collating information from two different sources and putting it together. That's the most important skill that it's showing. What I would firstly do then was start with your first text and begin to annotate that. So we know what question is. We're comparing what they say about what type of person becomes an intelligence officer. Use orange. What if I'm using two different colours? Yellow you can't see. Okay, so I'm going to look at this text first, the what spies are really like text. Thanks, girls. So get that one out in front of you. Year 11, this goes into your break time, doesn't it? This will take as long as it needs, so I'd suggest you just get your paper out without making any noise. When you're looking through this text, you're going to need to skim read a little bit because you're just looking for what type of person makes an intelligence officer. So as you read through the start, we can see it says, most people have watched a spy film but have never met someone from the intelligence community. So how close to the real spies to the Bournes and Bonds? Peter Taylor looks at the world of a modern-day secret agent. There's nothing really that tells me what's happening there. From James Bond to Spooks, Jason Bourne to Tinker Tailor, spying is big box office business. The fact is that the image of such operations is depicted on the big and small screens, firmly rooted in reality. However, those who actually carry out these covert and potentially dangerous operations could not be further removed from their imaginary counterparts. Well, that definitely is something about what they're like. So I'm definitely going to highlight that. And you're still going to use some of your inference skills in this question like you were before. So you're going to want to think, well, what's my overall point there? Well, I'm going to say something like, intelligence officers are unlike film and TV representations. That's my first idea. These officers are unlike film and TV representations. Let's move on to the next part. There is a myth that the modern spy has to come from the dreaming spires of Oxford or Cambridge. This is patently untrue. They're referring to the universities there. So if again I use my inference skills, that's telling me that to be a spy, you don't have to be highly academically educated to a Cambridge degree. That's untrue. So I might write something like, do not need uni, sorry, because I'm left-handed here, education. Sharmi, an intelligence officer, thought he never had a chance of being recruited as he'd never been to university. So that backs up that point. My understanding is you had to be upper class, academically bright, and white male, generally. I just felt I had nothing to offer. Again, we need to use our inference here. It's not saying you have to be upper class, white and male. It's saying you don't. So we can highlight those ideas and put something like, don't have to be white, male, etc. Nevertheless, he applies online, and to his amazement, after rigorous assessment, he was offered a job. Although Sharmi hadn't realised it, he was exactly the type of person that MI5 was looking for to carry out the surveillance. That is invariably the starting point for investigating suspected terrorists. Sharmi is streetwise, smart, and can easily blend into any community. Well, there's another bit of information about what intelligence officers are like. They're streetwise, smart, and they can blend in. I might write blend in there, just to remind me when I'm cross-referencing. Anonymity is the key to the way in which Sharmi operates. He says you're constantly analysing your own behaviour as well as the behaviour of others. The clothes you're wearing, how you're walking, and how you're talking are all factors that you constantly have to be thinking about. You've got to blend in. You have to be Mr. Grey, a nobody, a person you might pass in the street, but forget in a second. And again, I see an important part there. You've got to be Mr. Grey. You've got to blend in. Which I can just put an arrow up to where I've written blending. So it's kind of repeated, but it's some more evidence to support that these officers have to be able to blend in. He admits he gets a buzz from it and says his greatest fear is missing a vital bit of information that will go on to cause a loss of life. His greatest satisfaction is the arrest of individuals we're up against. Now, I know this is in a different colour, Miss Jenkins told me off for, but I'll just show you the annotations I did on the other side as well, because we haven't got a huge amount of time. But we've got an idea that spies are largely male and not women. That agrees with this idea here, that they're not all blokes, and there's only the women as secretaries. You can be a man or a woman. There's an idea that they're logical. It says there. They're brave, because there are risks involved. But 007 and the TV and the film is pure fantasy. It's not real life. Now, once you've highlighted and annotated the first text, then you have to come on to look at the second text. So, you've got your orange highlighters ideas on the first one, haven't you? Keep that somewhere where you can see it, because you want to be able to refer to it, but then get this second text, the advert, in front of you. Now, what I'd want to do, Year 11, to look at this text, was either to get myself a second highlighter or just use the pen that you're going to write your response with. Because you can do a little bit of orange for something that's the same, and maybe you could just circle or underline, or if you're lucky enough to have had another highlighter for Christmas, use a different colour for something that you feel to be a difference between the texts. And again, we've got to skim through to get an idea of what the text is saying. Quiet, Year 11, please. So, it starts off with, if the qualities to make a good spy were obvious, they wouldn't be a very good spy. Spy says it all, doesn't it? Covert surveillance, peering round corners, high-speed chases, and shootouts in casinos. Everyone knows this is what spies do. It's obvious, isn't it? Well, the first thing to know about MI6 is that nothing's obvious. Now, using, again, my inference skills there, I think that's saying, well, it's not like it's on TV, peering round corners and shootouts. It's being sarcastic, isn't it? Oh, yeah, that's obvious. That's what they do, isn't it? That is my first similarity. It is not like, or they are not like, sorry, TV and film representations. Actually, as I go on further in the article, I see another similarity that I can notice. We're looking here now. So while it's true the work often is challenging and even exciting, the qualities we look for are more ordinary than you'd imagine and more subtle. I again think that's quite similar, that these people, as it's saying in the first text, need to be able to blend in. The simple ability to get on with people from all kinds of cultures, for example, to talk and listen, to develop the sort of relationship that means you can convince them to do what's needed to protect our national security. Now, I don't remember anything in that other text about it overtly saying to be kind of a good communicator or a skilled communicator. So I'm going to put that as my first difference that I might discuss. This text talks about that overtly and the other doesn't, I don't think. This is a vital skill, along with the drive and imagination to link up pieces of data to reveal opportunities that others may have missed. Well, again, that does ring a bell a little bit to me. It talks about pieces of a jigsaw in the other text, didn't it? I think the word I used was logical to describe that. So I'm going to highlight there, logical. What are other preconceptions can we shatter? Spies are loners, expected to fend for themselves, even in dangerous situations. When, in reality, spies need to be resilient and resourceful. This is a team game, and every member is constantly supported. Well, again, I don't really remember overtly hearing those words or this idea that they had to be team players. So I'm going to highlight that as something that might be slightly different. Oh, and let's forget the old Tinker Tailor image of a hyper-intelligent, slightly dysfunctional oddball. In fact, you'll find we value both emotional intelligence and academic achievement. Remember in the other text it said about not needing to come from Oxford and Cambridge? Well, this text actually overtly says that you need to be highly educated. So I would say that was slightly different as well. I'll show you my finished one here, just very quickly so you can see the bottom. I know they're in a different colour. But there are a couple more things that I picked out. That if you're a spy, you had to be very secretive. I found the white male stereotype was dispelled, a similarity. You had to be a British national, and you had to be extraordinary. So I'm just going to very quickly show how you would begin this response, because what I'm going to have in front of me now is both the texts that I've highlighted, so I can see them, and I'm going to put together the beginning of my response. So I'll get my paper out here. Let me just move this way a bit so I can get my left hand to the paper. Remember, we need to put what question we're doing in the side box there, and it's 1-3. Now here, you must remember that you do not need to go, in these two texts, there are many similarities and differences. They know there are, that's why they gave them to you. Don't tell the examiner that that's there. You don't need to do that. Let's get straight into it. But also, think about comparative words you're going to use. Similarly, likewise, equally, or however, on the other hand, conversely. If you know you're going to forget, you could write them somewhere at the top just to remind you to use those comparative words as you go through your answer. Now, for me, the main thing that I noticed about those texts is the big emphasis that real-life spies are not like their TV counterparts. So I'm going to start with that. I'm making sure that I'm referring to which text I'm speaking about. The article, clearly straight away, and that's the one by Peter Taylor, states that the sort of people who become an intelligence officer are not like those portrayed on movies and TV. I need to embed a quote here, exactly as I would for question 1 or 2. I'll embed the quote, could not be further removed from their imaginary counterparts. Now, I know I've highlighted on my text that there's a similarity between these two. So then, let me use that comparative word to show I know this is a similarity. Similarly, the advertisement, and here again I'm making it absolutely clear, which text I'm referring to. Similarly, the advertisement mocks these stereotypes. We said it was a bit of sarcasm, didn't we? Sarcastically stating high speed chases and shootouts in casinos. Everyone knows that this is what spies do. I'll show you the rest of my article. I printed it out because my handwriting is so terrible. Looking at what I'd explore next. So it's exactly the same opening there, okay? But then I've got a few more comparisons that I've made. So here we begin the second paragraph. The advertisement goes on to state that intelligence officers have to have ordinary qualities. Similarly, the article states that you've got to blend in. The advertisement states that the white male stereotype of intelligence officers is a myth. Equally, the article discusses the misconception of an intelligence officer called Emma, who thought it would be largely male. Shami in the article also states you can be from any ethnic origin to be an intelligence officer, saying you don't have to be white or male, which agrees with the advertisement. In the article, it states that intelligence officers have to piece together a jigsaw, suggesting the officers have to be able to show logical skills and explore things in detail. Likewise, the advertisement states that intelligence officers have to be the kind of people who can link up pieces of data that others may have missed. Then I go on very quickly to a couple of differences. The article states you don't need a university education to become an intelligence officer. However, the advertisement states that academic achievement is valued. The advertisement states that intelligence officers are extraordinary people, whereas on the other hand, the article focuses on the fact that intelligence officers have to be Mr. Grey. Finally, the advertisement focuses on the teamwork needed by intelligence officers. Conversely, the article does not overtly state this. It does, however, finish by saying that intelligence officers do not act like a lone wolf, as the Bond film suggests. So they're right at the end. When you're looking at those exam specifications and mark schemes, it says be subtle. Well, that's an example of being subtle. The article doesn't overtly state that you have to use teamwork, but by saying they don't act like a lone wolf, it does suggest this. And there, in the end, you show that subtle exploration. And now Miss Firas, I think, is going to come and talk about section B.
All right then, so if we haven't already, if you fold over your paper and you'll find that at the back is the writing section. There's absolutely no need to talk about it. Just fold it over and have it in front of you. So, as Miss Atkins said last time with Unit 1, in every exam hall, there is probably one person who will forget or choose not to turn over their paper and see the second unit. Please don't let that be you. Ensure that you do, in plenty of time, turn over and find that question for you there. You don't have a choice of question. There will be one question which you must answer. That is why it is imperative that you learn the different text types that you may be asked. Now, you will have already done this in your English lessons, But if you find you have forgotten, or there are particular text types that spook you a little bit, it is worth going home tonight, going on BBC Bite Size, looking through your exercise book and the Unit 2 booklet which you have been given, and begin by revising the ones that you are least familiar with. So the text types are, if you want to jot them down, because you can take your paper with you, formal or informal letter, newspaper article, magazine article, leaflet, which is the text we had last year, review of a book or a film. It's worth making sure that you have a book or a film in your head so that if you are asked that, you can answer the question. Report, speech, and talk. Now, today we're hopefully going to go through some general practice, 4 questions, and have a little look at planning. This is perhaps a more intimidating question than Unit 1, the story, because you are told the topic that you are going to write on the day. Unlike a story where generally you can go in with an idea of something that you might like to write about. As you can see at the very top of the page, it says that you get half marks for content and organisation and half marks for sentence structure, punctuation and spelling. As Miss Atkins said last time, it really is worth being aware of the errors that you commonly make and the errors that are picked up in your exercise book, and noting those at the top of the page to ensure that you do not make those same errors again in the exam. That is why the teachers are picking them out for you, is to ensure that you know what they are, that you learn about them, and that you don't make them again. So if it's apostrophes, if it's run-on sentences, whatever it is, particular spellings, note those at the top of the page, and then you've got that safety net there when you go on to look at it. So it says aim to write 350 to 500 words. That will be the same for each question that you get on Unit B. Do not spend time counting your words. You will know whether it is long enough. So this question reads as follows. As part of the way your school or college tries to help new students settle in, you have been asked to write a lively and entertaining welcome to, for instance, Monmouth Comprehensive School leaflet, which will give advice and information from a student's viewpoint. Write your leaflet. Now, one piece of advice that I can give you, which is quite obvious, but some of us seem to take some comfort from it, although it does lose us marks, don't spend your time drawing columns for a leaflet. Don't spend your time drawing lovely pictures and maps of the school. If you want to put in a picture, you can just write map in a box. You must not spend time drawing beautiful pictures. So, the first thing that I would have a little think about is GAP. So GAP stands for genre, audience, and purpose. And I would do this very quickly. The reason why I would do this is just to orientate myself and to make sure that the thing I write is appropriate, because that's what they're looking for, it's appropriacy. So the genre is the type of text that they're wanting you to write, whether it's a leaflet, a letter, etc. The audience here is, as you can see, new students. And it's worth just taking a moment to think about how your audience needs to be treated. In this case, they don't know where they are. They're at a brand new school. They probably feel uncomfortable, a little bit lost. They need to be welcomed. They need to have stuff explained to them in a friendly way. So that's going to affect your language choices. And the purpose, which is to help them settle in. So you're going to need to make sure that the advice that you give them is genuinely helpful and is the sort of thing that you would need to know. So very quickly, just to show you, this is a big sprawling plan that I've done. You have 10 minutes planning time. You must use that planning time the best you can. Now, for Unit 2B, what I would really make sure that I do is, firstly, think about the layout and whether that needs to go into your plan. So for a leaflet, I know I need a main title. I know I need some subtitles. So I've done those as my bubbles. Those will be my subtitles. And underneath, I would write down little bits of information to add detail, to add more specific ideas. They're looking for you to be specific. If you need to make something up that is sensible, please feel free. So, for instance, in this case, if you can't remember what time you can sign in from if you're late or where the book is, just make that information up. The same as if you get given a newspaper and you need to make up facts, statistics, as long as they sound sensible, feel free to make them up because they're not expecting you to be an expert on everything. So you'll have your main bubbles, and those will either be your subtitles or your topic sentences, that first line. Then, coming off from there, get all of your details. This is the hard work done, because then you're not sat there blankly panicking. You've got your ideas, you just have to flesh them out and make them nice and clear to read. It's the same for any type of text that you might be given. Here is a different one that we had a few years ago, which was write a lively article for a teenage magazine with one of the following titles: My Kind of Music, My Kind of Fashion, My Kind of My Kind of Movie. This threw people in the exam because it sounded a bit like a review, but it's not a review. They've asked for an article. And if you did your gap analysis, that would show you that. So genre, magazine article, audience, teenage magazine, teenagers. And your purpose is to entertain them and to tell them about that music type. And again, you can see here, it's a similar planning. My Kind of Music is going to be my title, so I don't need to think that up. They've told me that. And there we can see I've got why I like the music, introduction to the genre, the bands, gigs, and I've put that into a nice structure with all of my little ideas on there. You might also notice in your head comes some interesting vocabulary as you are planning. So there I've got riot of colour, tropical, authentic, optimistic. If these great words are coming to you whilst you're planning, get them down straight away. Don't let them slip away and be sat there wasting your time. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about really quickly is the use of the word lively. The WJC like the word lively. They put it in a lot of things. I don't know why, but I can tell you what they expect when they say lively. It's also like teenage magazine. This is something that the WJC like very much, but I'm sure doesn't actually exist. So, lively means interesting word choices. You're not writing the word great. You're not writing the word good. You are using words that show off your vocabulary, that show off how precise you can be, that show off that you can choose words for effect that are actually going to interest the poor examiner who's probably taught a full day, has planned their lessons, marked their books, and is now up at 2 in the morning with a cup of coffee. So lively, interesting words. Use of humour where appropriate. Obviously, if you're asked to write on a charity speech, and you've chosen Cancer Research UK, it's not going to be appropriate to use humour. But if they're asking for that word lively, generally, humour, use of asides, so things in brackets and parenthetic commas, little hints that you know the reader's there, you know it's a real life audience. Use of you, popular culture where appropriate. So if you're writing to a student audience, you can allude to things that they would know. The other thing that goes across all of the text types is SSPS. And over the last few years, they put more of a focus on sentence structure, punctuation, and spelling. It used to be less marks, now it is more. So it is crucially important that you know how to get those top marks in that area. Another one of the WJC's favourite things is parenthetic commas, which is something a little bit like this. So this is in the sort of CB grade criteria. They like it when you write sentences almost with brackets in the middle, but instead it's using those commas. So for My Kind of Music, you might write ska, which features brass bands, is a lesser known genre. So you can see there. Ooh, no, you can't. You can almost see there how those commas are used like brackets in the middle. They're also looking for you to use shorter sentences for effect, longer ones for detail, and those shorter ones for drama. Right, I'm going to show you one more, and I'm going to show you an example very quickly. So the one that I'm going to show you is another one again. I'm trying to show you as many as I can so that you're prepared for the sort of thing that you might be asked. So there we go. It says your school wants to raise money for charity. You have the chance to speak in an assembly to persuade the school to support a charity of your choice. So I'd be picking out things like school wants to raise money, speak in assembly, because you'd know what sort of speech would be appropriate there. Support a charity of your choice. And then it says you might consider why it is a good charity to support and how students should get involved. Now, you will find, if they give you bullet points, you should use them. So that should become part of your planning. If they've written something on the paper other than blank page, it is there to help you, so use it. And your planning would go on as normal with your topic sentences and all of your ideas, they're numbered. If you have time in your planning, you might like to link the sections with those linking words. So firstly, secondly, where appropriate. So let's have a look at this one together. This one got 14 content and organisation and 14 SSPS, which leaves it at 28 out of 30, which one assumes is an A star. So it begins, good afternoon, fellow students and teachers. So straight away, that's an appropriate way to start a speech. In assembly, if someone said that it would be completely normal, completely expected. I would like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to talk to you all today about something that really does mean a lot to me. This candidate received marks for their polite and earnest tone. If you are speaking in assembly or in any formal letter or speech, politeness is very important indeed. So remember our pleases, our thank yous, and our introductions. 2 months ago, my uncle was diagnosed with cancer of the colon. At first, I was very worried about him. Just last week, I went to visit him in the hospital, and he told me not to worry about him at all. He told me that he felt perfectly calm thanks to the support of his Cancer UK representative. So that is what I want to talk to you about today, the charity Cancer Support UK. So you can see there the use of anecdote to enrich. Even if it's not true, it's still effective. So sometimes you will find that you need to make up little stories that are believable, that are engaging, so that you can show a bit of depth in your paragraphs, because it's easy sometimes just to stop, to go, Cancer UK is a wonderful charity, and stop. But we're looking for those longer paragraphs with depth. So, Cancer UK are a leading charity that split their money between research about the disease and helping those who are suffering from it. So already, we're answering why is it a good charity to support. They offer counselling, unfortunately there's an error there, to family members that are upset about the disease and have a stream of knowledge, which is a nice way to put it, about each cancer type that provides comfort and answers many of our questions. I believe that Cancer Support UK is extremely important because it allows cancer patients and their families to understand what is happening at every stage of their treatment and allow endless hours of comfort to be given to those who are affected. So look at their use of adjective there, endless hours, very nice, very thoughtful. I know from personal experience, so anecdote again, just how much a Cancer Support UK representative can mean to someone going through the terrible ordeal. Again, look at their language. They're using their language to make the audience agree with them. That is cancer treatment. Now, this is really nice. Look at how it directly addresses the people that are listening with the use of you. I know that some of you may be sat there listening to me and think that cancer doesn't affect you, but it honestly does. So very engaging, just like the use of rhetorical questions. It's very thoughtful, very engaging, and makes the reader sit up and listen. Today in the UK, someone will be told that they have cancer every 7 minutes. These statistics and facts can be made up. You have no access to anything to research, and you have no idea what the topic is going to be. As long as you make up a statistic or a fact that is sensible, then that is fine. 7 minutes. Look at that little minor sentence there. You can imagine how that would be read out. It's very appropriate. Since I started speaking to you, someone will have just been diagnosed. I'm asking you today to give up a little bit of your time and just a little of your money to support these wonderful people working for this charity. You can see here how for the more practical aspects, they've used bullet points. That's perfectly acceptable in a range of texts. I would say formal letters, perhaps not, but the rest, bullet points are fine for making those short, snappy points. The ending is important. They've gone from the practical bits here, and it says, whatever you can give will help massively, and I think we can all agree that this charity is a worthy cause. So they've planned very well there, and they've clearly come to some sort of conclusion. Okay, can you just make sure that you fold up your piece and you can take that paper home for revision tonight? Okay.
Okay, 2 further points before you go. Listen carefully, please. You may have missed Miss Fieldhouse saying that you can take these papers home and use this paper and note on it to support your revision. If you stop what you're doing, please, for a moment, leave your papers on the desk. A moment. So use those for revision tonight. I want to go back first of all to question 3. One thing that I think it's worth mentioning is sometimes when you're looking between 2 texts, you may find that there are no similarities to discuss at all. In which case, that's absolutely fine. Just focus on the differences and don't be persuaded to simply say, I can't really find many similarities between the 2 texts, because immediately you're demonstrating a lack of confidence in your answer. So simply focus on the differences. And then finally, one other piece of advice. When you go into that examination, it's also not good advice as an instruction, really. You must write in black ink. So take a black ballpoint pen in with you so that you can write in the examination, because these papers, your answer booklets, are scanned electronically and they are marked via a computer. So do make sure that you write in black ink, please. So lastly then, huge thank you again to Mr. Parkinson and Miss Fieldhouse for the part